Welcome to The Long Road. My name is Chris Roberts. I'm your host. We're here today for part 2 of Staff Sergeant Castaro's United States Army Air Corps World War II B-17 crew member as he continues to talk about how he was able to survive an explosion, a midair hit with German flak, 25,000-foot parachute jump, suffering serious injuries, and able to escape Gestapo. He was a prisoner for the Gestapo, was able to escape, and was able to make his way back to England. And so hopefully you'll enjoy this second segment of the show. And I think if you have any questions, at the end we'll put up Staff Sergeant Casaro's website or his email so you can ask him personally. Thank you.
This is a telegram my folks got that I was missing in action. Next, Charlie. Naval Gazette picked that story. 116 enemy planes went down that day. They don't say how many American planes. These are letters that my sister sent. As you can see, missing in action. She kept writing to me. I'm going to go fast right about here. There's a letter saying that she wishes us good luck knowing that we had been shot down, missing in action. The Naval Gazette came out with a story about Haverhill's prisoners of war. And as you can see, I'm listed there as deceased prisoners of war. And I fooled them. The day they took me out of that prison that the road group had, they decided to take me, it was Easter Sunday, and they took me for absolution at the St. John the Baptist Church in Reims, and it was April 9th, 1944, loaded with German officers and soldiers. These French, very gallant people, get themselves in a lot of trouble being that way, and I'll tell you about that a little later on too. So after we had the church services, this fella here that came in and put his finger to his mouth, took me to his home in Chambézy, France, and he was a baker. Thank God. Now, for the first time in my life, and first time in being over there, I had 2 square meals a day through him. He had a chicken farm, and he had all kinds of bread and the pastries, and he tried to get me back in health. You can see my arm is still in a sling. And that was after staying with him 2 weeks. It was a big mistake. Usually when you stayed in the safe house, you were there maybe 1 or 2 or 3 days, but 2 weeks is too much. He introduced me to somebody the day before this who gave me away for a $10,000 reward. So I got captured a second time. And he was out delivering bread. This is a friend of his that was deaf and dumb, and helped him out quite a bit. While I was there, what we would do is I was working with the French resistance, the French intelligence, the British intelligence. There was not an American intelligence operator there. We were told, believe it or not, that if you get shot down, you got to come back and report everything you've seen. So who was the spies for the Americans? People, guys like me that get shot down and made it back. Well, anyway, we would go out and the British would come over and drop supplies to the French resistance. And I was given a Sten gun, put in my left arm. I was supposed to be guarding to see if there's any Germans around. And if there weren't any, I wouldn't do anything, just watch the plane come over. But if the plane was going to land, they wanted me to run up to the plane and jump on it because they may fly me back. What had happened, before we got into the war, the British were losing so many of their pilots that Churchill set up an organization called the Special Operations Executive. And a Special Operations Executive, SOE they called it, had 3 methods of trying to get their pilots back again. They could produce all the planes they needed, but they needed the pilots to fight the Luftwaffe, especially the experienced ones. So the first method was that plane that was dropping supplies to the French resistance would land, pick up spies or whatever, and if you were lucky enough, you could jump on, but they never did land for me. The second method was through a gunboat. They take a gunboat, bring it across the English Channel, and they take 27 men, and they put it in the gun wheels like this, and they bring spies or whatever back. That never happened to me either. The third method was a tough method. That was to climb the Pyrenees Mountains. That's what they chose me for. Well, anyway, I got picked up with his wife, brought to the Gestapo headquarters, and you have to read the book, How I Escaped Again, because it'd take you too long to explain it, but I'll tell you what happened to his wife. They tortured the devil out of her in Reims, France. Outside the Gestapo headquarters, they had a cement mixer. And any time they would torture somebody to stop the people outside from hearing the screaming, they start that cement mixer up. And that poor woman was really bad, torture. She survived the war only because she knew how to bake bread, and she was a good clerk. And if you read my book, there's a lot of information that she puts, that I picked up from her about the Holocaust and so forth, and who owned the land, how the land was distributed. And if you read the book, you'll see it. The day before, I picked up this P-51 landed about a mile away from Pierre's house. So we went over there, checked it out, and we took a time bomb, and Pierre got friendly with a German guard. He gets in the plane, he puts the time bomb underneath the seat. An hour later, the plane and the guard blew up. These are the things that we used to do. At that time, the British named me Burgundy. That's why the book name is called Code Burgundy. And I wasn't known by John Casares. I was known by Burgundy, by the intelligence. And the French only knew me by Jean Gaulois. They named that after a cigarette that they have, a lousy cigarette that the French had. And it got kind of hot and heavy for me in that area after I escaped the second time. As I said, you'll have to read that in the book. It'll take too long to tell you. And the people in the French resistance took a picture of me and a fake ID, and I had to go from there to Epernay to Paris. And in case they checked me out on the train or wherever, by bus or by walking, whatever, I'd have that ID. Next. But before I went over there, they set me up in a safe house. And one of the safe houses I was in was in a farm. I stayed there for about a day and a half, and I met a British, a fellow named Jack Hoad, who was a British bombardier in the Lancaster. He got shot down a few days before I arrived there. And the owner of the farm says, if the Gestapo comes looking for you, I have two wells. One well is full of water, the other one is dry. So he says, we're going to test and run it. So people jump in the bucket. We jumped in the bucket. He put us down 20, 30 feet and took us up again. But what had happened, within a few hours, sure enough, there's a Gestapo, boom, we go down into the well. The Gestapo's up there talking to the owner of the farm for over an hour. Here we are, right underneath their noses, not even knowing I was there. It got too hot and heavy there. They took us out and brought us to this fellow's house. This guy was trying to get me to fly back with a colonel. It was a British, he was a Luftwaffe colonel flying an Me-110, an obsolete plane. And he hated Hitler because Hitler wouldn't let him fly the German jet that they had. And as a result, he knew the war was lost. And I was introduced to him, and we were having drinks together. Kind of crazy. But that's what happened. But 2 days after he introduced me to him, the guy got killed. So I never had a chance to fly back with him. But that fella there, 3 days before they were liberated in Bourgogne, France, he was caught cutting wires, telephone wires, and the Germans had, and they shot him. He escaped, and he lived for several days, but he died. And this is his wife and his kids at that time, and the whole family. And you can see how sad she was when they buried him. This is Lynette, his daughter, who you'll see in the next picture. We'll show you when she's grown up. That's Lynette there. She and I were back and forth together all the time. Next. This is the Me-110 that he was trying to fly me back in. Next. Well, anyway, it got so hot and heavy in Reims, I had to go to Epernay. And from Epernay, I ended up in Paris. And in Paris, I met up with this woman named Genevieve, and she was my guide for 2 days. And I hadn't seen Genevieve. heard from her in over 60 some odd years until recently, and I'll tell you all about it because I'm going to go see her next spring. And she took me to a gendarme's house. That gendarme, go back to that picture, please. That gendarme had 2 uniforms. And here I am in Paris, dressed in this uniform, walking the Champs-Élysées before D-Day. That's the way I escaped in Paris. The chief of police in Paris was head of the resistance movement, and he didn't like my ID from Reims, so he took me to a Jewish woman, and it was the first one I've seen with a Star David on her, and she was a forger. She forged me another set of IDs and took this picture, which I still have, and then they took me into a private room, and for 4 or 5 hours, she gave me all the information about the Holocaust, so when I got back to England, I could report about what was happening. She knew all the camps, how many people were being brought into the camps, how many children, how many females, how many men, and who the commander of the camp was, how many were getting killed, and how, all that information I got back, and I gave that information to the intelligence when I got back. So the book says Cold Burgundy, and you know why it's called Cold Burgundy. It also says The Long Escape, because I had to go from Reims, France, after coming from Frankfurt, Germany. I got down to Epernay, I got down to Paris, down to Saint-Geron, and here's Saint-Geron here. Finally, I got down to Toulouse. And Toulouse was supposed to go over this section, pick up a gunboat, and we never could get it, so we'd have to go back to Toulouse again. Then they decided to take us over this way to the Pyrenees Mountains, which was a one-day climb. What happened is that a few days after I left Paris, somebody gave the resistance away, and the Germans got hold of 200 Allied airmen and the chief of police, and they shot them all. So if you go to the 8th Air Force Museum in Savannah, Georgia, there's a whole section about Air Force escape and evasion, and you'll see that information there. The American government won't tell you about this. I am telling you right now, if you go there, you'll find out about it. So they took us back to Saint-Geron and decided to take us this way. So they named the trail that we took Burgundy, because this is the only people that ever climbed that trail, because D-Day took effect shortly after we went over. On D-Day, we were climbing the Pyrenees, and we were up about 15,000 feet on the French side. When D-Day took place, we had no idea of this. We had no climbing clothes, no boots, and Ken told me how a friend of his had his shoes tied to his parachute. When he bailed out, he lost them. Same thing happened to me. When I got hit the ground, I had boots on. The Germans took my boots. I had no shoes. The French gave me a pair of shoes. You know, the French at that time were all small. I had a size 10.5 shoe. They gave me about a 9 size. I'm climbing the Pyrenees Mountains with 9 size shoes. I had to cut the shoes. Thank God, I was lucky again. Why was I lucky? I was climbing with 6 other Americans. And if it wasn't for them, I never would have made the Pyrenees Mountains, because they dragged me over. They got a branch off a tree, and any time we got up to a position where there was ice and snow and water, they would pull me up. It took us 4 nights, no food, no water, no gloves, no hat, nothing. Got into Spain, and they locked us up. They brought us down to Lerida, Spain. We got down there. I was very, very sick, very emaciated, so the major that I was with contacted the commander of the prison. He said, I got a very sick airman, so he brought me to the dispensary, and the doctor could speak perfect English. He said, let me weigh you. He weighed me up. He said, you're 87 pounds. That's all I weighed at the time. And he said, you're so bad, I got to push you in the dispensary. But then he said something else. He said, did you know the Allies had D-Day? They landed in Normandy, and they started to advance. I said, would you repeat that again? He did. I said, doctor, you made me feel better already. So I went outside, I told the major. The major had called the commander of the prison. 2 days later, after talking to the embassy in Madrid, they came in and got us out. But before that, if you got caught in Spain, boy, they did a job on you. We were lucky, because it happened right after D-Day. Next. what happened is finally we get to Madrid. We had a big banquet there with the embassy. They put us on the train. We get down to La Línea, Spain. So you can see the thousands of miles I went. That's why I say Cold Burgundy, the long escape. It took thousands of miles to get back. Get into Gibraltar. I took that picture of Gibraltar, which looks a lot better than that now. That was a lousy camera. And what happened is that I met up with the RAF, Royal Air Force, and they gave us clothing. We finally had a nice shower and new RAF clothes. And the next day, they took us on a C-47 and flew us back to Bristol, England. That's the type of plane they flew us back in. Where's Harvey? Harvey, you here? Is that the type of plane your friend has?
Yeah, we just flew over one this morning over in Mason.
Okay, Harvey. My ace pilot flies me up from Lawrence with my gang here. Okay, next. Now they call the Burgundy Trail, they call it the Free French and the French Freedom Trail. Burgundy doesn't mean anything. And people try to climb that. As you can see, it's difficult and severe from Saint Laurent. They tried to climb it with all kinds of food, water, help, and so forth. People can't make it. Why did we make it? We had a desire to live. That's why I had a lot of help. Next. When I got down to intelligence headquarters with the 6 other Americans, I said, "Who's Burgundy?" I was the youngest guy there. I stood up. They couldn't believe it was me, so they put me in a private room, and I had to get somebody from my air base to identify me, and I couldn't find anybody that I knew on the base that either been shot down, wounded, prisoners, whatever you have. But I knew the intelligence officers, and his name was Pop Fry. So I called him up, and he said, "I'll be right over." So he flew down, and he walked in. He said, "Hi, John, how are you?" So he had to sign a release. There's a copy of the release that he signed. Fry, this is my thumbprint. That approved that you were John Pizarro. They didn't know whether I was faking it or not. Next, I had to sign a secrecy document. There's a secrecy document, and I still haven't been released by it. Next. This cable I sent from England, and it didn't arrive at my home until I was back to the house. But the newspaper picked up the information. I was in a neutral country, and when I got home, I called up, and they said, "What neutral country you in?" I said, "New York City." Believe it. The Herald Gazette picked up the story. Next. You get the story about our jump from 25,000 feet. Next. This here is, I was picked by the Congressman Bates from Massachusetts to go to the military academy after I got out of the service. So I went before 7 doctors down in Boston, and when they examined me, they said, "You couldn't take the rigors of West Point." I said, "You kidding? What I went through, I can't go through that." They said, "No, you can't." I said, "I want to stay in the service." Go back to that again. You know what they said to me? "You can't stay in the service." So they gave me my discharge right there and then. And on my discharge, if you can see that, it says physical condition when discharged, poor. That's the way I was released. I had to go through my own doctor, several operations, and take shrapnel out of my body or whatever you had. That's how they release you. Next. Now I went back to France to do a lot of researching. And this is one of the reunions I went to in 1987. But what had happened is that it took me 20 years to research everything. I wrote a book to make it authentic, get the names right, get the areas correctly. And these are the fellows that were still living. Renee, this woman here, this is where I stayed at the farmhouse one night, and he had passed away. There's these 4 people all dead now. She just died, 99 years old.
Oh, wow.
And he headed the, Jean Joly, he headed the Reims underground. This guy ran the underground west of Reims. And this is his wife. She was the one I was captured with. She was the one who was tortured. Next. This is the farmhouse that I stayed in. This is the woman who owned it. And this is Henry. And there's a ball turret operator that put the parachute on me. He passed away last year. Next. And Pierre Demaché, he got all kinds of medals. And if you see this is Lorraine Cross. And the Free French used to wear that patch because it had an FF on it, Free French Resistance, and they put a V in it for victory. And they had that patch around their outfit. When the invasion took place, all the Free French Resistance would have that around their armband. I received all his medals. He's given them to me. I said, you got to give them to your son. He said, you're my first son. I didn't have a son when you were here. And that's what the French did. They treated us like their own kids. I dedicated this book to the French resistance, and why I did it, because without them, I wouldn't be here today. There'd be thousands of other people who wouldn't be around. They got a bad rap, but I never had any problems with any Frenchman. Next. Has a picture they took me when I got home. This is a Free French award they gave me. It's a letter that came from this woman that finally found out where Genevieve lived, and she lives in Paris, and now she's writing to me. Go right through. There's Genevieve right here. She was 21 years old, beautiful looking woman I met in Paris when I got off the train. She met me, she had a career in her head. They told me she's going to have a newspaper under her right arm, and she'd be carrying a parasol on her left. And she was right there. As I got off the train, there she was. I didn't know where she lived. These are the letters that she sent me that I'm going to go see her next spring. Next. She complained because I said she was a blonde. She said, no, I wasn't a blonde. I was a brunette. I had a dark hat on. This is very interesting because this is my this is my bombardier, and these are two Englishmen. And when he was the only one never captured, and she was called in to help him because these two people were going to medical school in Paris. And he was a Greek going to medical school at that time, and today, if they had royalty in France, she would have been the Queen of France. Her name is Bertrand Bovard. Became an ophthalmologist. Next. These are German reports I recently picked up. This is my second edition book that I wrote. The first edition was sold out, and I went through another year and a half of researching and writing the book, and got a lot of intelligence reports. I got people that helped me out on it. And as you can see, here I am over here. The Germans said, Casares, he's at large. And I found out when two of my men are buried. The American government never told us where they were buried. Now I found out from the Germans where two of my men are buried, and when I go back next year, I'm going to go visit their graves. Next. These are more intelligence reports. John Casares was last seen in the aircraft. He was wounded, and he escaped. All German reports. Another one says he escaped and he's on the run. That's my wife, Mary, and Charlie Coco took his place today. Thank you very much, Charlie. And where's my lawyer? Where's Fred Cerrone? Stand up, Fred. This fella helped me with my book, too. There's a lot of work in my book. Thank you, Fred. Two Italian boys from North Reading called me up one day. They said, we have researched your airplane, and we're going to make one for you. So they built this airplane for me. And it's exactly the way it was when we started flying the mission to Frankfurt. It's called the Man of War. I have it under a glass cage because all the kids get it. And they stop breaking it up. Now, these are some of Hitler's secret weapons. Some of them you know, some you may not know. This is the Me-262 fighter plane. They built 1,000 of them. Next. This bus bomb, when I was back in London, after getting out of the intelligence headquarters, I went through 1,000 of these. And they would come, they were unmanned bombs, and they would come over, and you could hear them sound like a lawnmower engine going pop, 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 pop. And when it stopped, we used to count to 5. And we used to say, if you can count to 5, you're still alive. Because if you couldn't count to 5, it'd be landing right near you. Britishers in London, go back to that one again, John, they lost 6,000 Londoners, 17,000 were wounded in those attacks. The British Spitfires, I got these pictures from my friends, and it shows the Spitfire over the English Channel. What they would do is they'd try to get their wing, and the wing of the unmanned buzz bomb, and flip it over. They'd drop it into the English Channel. And you can see how they did it. There's another picture here, how they went under the wing. Now, if they couldn't do that over the English Channel, we could see them up above, and they would attack that unmanned bomb, and they go right, blow it up, and go right through the debris, and a lot of British pilots get killed that way. Next, the B-2. 20,000 slave laborers died building it. 15,000 people were killed between the B-1s and the B-2 in London alone. Next. Anybody recognize that plane? Yes, sir. Stand up so we can hear it.
HO229?
That's a what?
It's HO229?
That's right. That's right. This is a German plane. It was a German bomber that was built in 1943-44, and the 8th Air Force kept bombing their facilities so they wouldn't develop it. Hitler wanted this, and a lot of people were ridiculing him, but they wanted more fighters. But he wanted this plane, and why he wanted it. It could fly, believe it or not, from Berlin to New York, back again without refueling. It could carry an atomic bomb, and it could fly at 60,000 feet, at 600 miles an hour. Now that plane here, we picked up, the American government picked up the plans, and they built it, and that plane is in Washington, D.C. They have another one out in California. Next. This is HO2. There's our bomber. Don't they look similar? I got this in the book before they released it. This was put in the book about a year ago. Now they have to release it. I'm not the Wikipedia. Okay, there's a B-2 bomber built by Northrop. Next. You can see what they can do. We have, you know that not one of these B-2s have ever been even hit by any kind of shrapnel or a bullet. And they've been flying for how many years? From the original Iraqi war until now. And I sign all my books by saying cherish your freedom, and especially when I speak to the kids at school, I tell them that, you know, we came up that close to losing World War II, and now we're getting that close to losing our freedom, and it's up to you kids to save us. Right. Next. That's the end of my pledge right there. Do I have any questions? Come on out. There has to be some questions, because when I speak to the kids at school, I get the greatest questions. Like one of them said to me, Gil, all right, go ahead.
Just a quick question. You mentioned 5 key things, you know, luck and faith and guts. I don't know if you mentioned the 5th one.
What's the 5th one?
I'm not sure.
You have to be positive and have the will to live and know you're going to live. That's why. Got it?
Yep.
That's the 5th. Next. Yes, sir.
As a waste gunner, how'd you keep from shooting your fellow bombers?
What?
How'd you keep from shooting your fellow bombers?
Very easy.
Oh.
You identified them better, and you made certain you didn't do it. you wouldn't be alive if you did. No, we didn't have it. We didn't have much trouble with that. The turrets had cutoffs. The top turret and the ball turret had cutoffs, but the handheld guns, you were careful. Next. Yes, sir. How I am.
Fine.
I see.
The document that you signed about secrecy, can you talk a little bit more about that? I mean, when did you sign that? As soon as you got back?
Yeah, I signed that, I think it was June 12th,
And what
1944.
exactly did you sign when you signed the document of secrecy? That you would never talk about your exploits?
That's right.
Ever?
That's right. They still won't release me. See, as president of the Air Force Escape and Evasion Society, we all signed it.
So you're
Not
all...
one person has been released. In fact, if you look at my card, you'll see that I'm known by the United States government as EE-755. And your EE stands for escape and evasion, and they give you a number. They don't recognize us as escapees, they don't recognize us as evaders, and why don't they do it? You tell me. Slowly but surely, we're letting all these secrets out, and they have to.
So the people who have written their, like you, who have written their stories and their exploits, violators of law?
Yeah, we all violate the law. But when I told them I was going to print the book, as I said earlier, I said, I'm printing it. And they said, how are you printing it? I said, because of the American Freedom of Information Act. And they have to let it out. That's why they now, if you watch the History Channel, is that where you picked up that HO2 from the History Channel?
No, there was an article.
No.
They have articles in the paper now, they have it on the History Channel now. because I print it. Now, little kids, you know, when I speak to little kids, I speak to kids in the 5th, 6th, 7th grade, all the way up to college and so forth. It's the greatest thing in the world to speak to these kids, because up until I went on a speaking tour, I never realized that I thought the kids were just a bunch of druggies and what have you, like everybody else is, you know? Well, when I speak to them, the professor of one college came up to me and says, if the kids leave early, don't be embarrassed. I said, all right. So I spoke to about 175 kids in one of the college classes, and everyone stayed in, and they all ran up afterwards, and I started asking me questions. So I have a different feeling about these kids. I have a feeling that we're going to be saved by these kids the way you were all saved by 18, 19-year-old kids back in World War II. Now the kids said, one of the girls put up her hand, she says, how did you drop the bombs? Did you pick them up by hand and drop them out the window? How did we drop the bombs? Can anybody tell me?
They're in a rack.
We had a bombardier that had a Northern bomb sight, and a lot of you pilots must know this. When we went into the IP, initial point of attack, the bombardier would take over not only the bomb site, but he'd take over the plane. He flew the plane from the bomb site. Am I right? And when he dropped the bombs away, then the pilot would take over again. So that was a very interesting question that kid asked. Another one says, how many guns you have aboard? I said, 13. What kind of rifles were they? How do they know? You know, now you have to point out to them that they were machine guns, and when I speak to them, I show them a 50 caliber machine bullet. So they know. Yes, sir.
I don't understand.
You better speak up loud because I'm deaf.
It's been 55 years since the end of World War II. What is the vital information that they want to keep secret? I don't understand this at all.
Well,
I mean,
they didn't release that anything about the bomber until just a few months ago. Can you imagine if we got back to the United States and we told them, and I got back in June of July 1944, and the war was still going on for another year and some odd months. If we told them that the Germans had a bomber that could fly from Berlin to New York and back there without refueling with an atomic bomb on it. And you know, they had the atomic bomb before we did, except that the 8th Air Force kept bombing their facilities, and the British did a lot of things with their water. And if we told that to the American public, can you imagine what would have happened?
Mass panic.
Yes, sir.
You
Oh,
had
wait
hit-
a minute, we got a Marine here. Speak up, Mr. Marine.
First, I'll say I was going to an Army school at Fort Belvoir as an engineer, and I had to do a research paper. And it hit onto what you said. I had to go to the National Archives, and there was a lot of German stuff. And I also, on the United States side, I was going over the Onion reports, the little flimsy paper of the actual day-to-day, and I'm going, where did this war happen? I have no idea what's happening when I'm reading the stuff, the actual stuff typed there. It's nothing I learned about World War II, and I was a history major.
I have a friend that, one of my best friends, Ken Killalay, was a Marine during World War II, and he went in the, instead of going to the Air Force with me, he went into the Marines because they had better looking clothes. So he ended up in the Pacific, 6 invasions. He ended up in Iwo Jima, He got shot in Iwo Jima and lost 5 of his men. He was a gunner. They had 5 men on his. They all got killed except him. He was seriously wounded, and he made it back, and he's still living. And when he goes to his reunions, he still can get into his Marine dress clothes because he's still skinny as he was when he went in. Any other questions? Okay, then thank you very much. And
John, on behalf of Monadnock Aviation, the local area pilots, and a grateful nation, thank you very, very much for your service.
if anybody's interested in any autograph books, I'll be glad to assist them in the back of the room. Thank you very much. I appreciate everything you've done. Thank you, everybody.
My name is Chris Roberts. I'm here with the Long Road Show. And
How are you doing, Chris? My pleasure.
tell the audience your name.
My name is John Casares.
And it's kind of really appropriate. We got this book, Code Burgundy, The Long Escape, no pun intended. And we just did a whole presentation. Where can people go to buy your book?
They'd have to get in touch with me.
How do they get in touch with you?
If they would write to me at that jcasares3 at comcast.net. That's my email. My telephone number is 978-869-3039. That's my cell number. And I live in 109 Crosby Street, C-R-O-S-B-Y, Haverhill, Massachusetts, 01830.
Okay, and so for the viewers, we'll put this on the screen a couple of times. I really appreciate you coming to Keene. And one of the really quick things, a lot of people don't understand. You got the equivalent when you were there in World War II. That was like high school seniors and college freshmen.
That's correct.
And what did it think about losing that 18, 19 years when a lot of today 18, 19-year-olds are out partying?
It's the same thing today as it was then. And that's why I said to you today that the kids of today, I have come to the conclusion in the past 2 years that they have the same desire as we had back then. And I think they're the ones that are going to save us the way we saved them back in 1943, 44, 45.
We've been in war between Iraq and Afghanistan 9, 10 years, and you still have 18, 19, 20-year-old kids joining the Marine Corps, joining the Army, and people kept saying, oh, our best and our brightest. I think it may be our best and our bravest sign up.
Well, I think they are. Now, the important thing is that a 4-star general by the name of Duncan McNabb, who eventually might be the #1 man in the Air Force, asked me one day, what ribbon here is the most important? Is it the Purple Heart, the DFC, the Air Medal, the Prisoner of War? I said, no. Guess what it was?
In the Marine Corps for enlisted, it's a good conduct.
No, it wasn't a good conduct either. There's a victory with
The victory.
because that's the last time we had a victory in the war. World War II was a victory.
It was.
We haven't had a victory since. And we're hopeful that we will have one in Afghanistan right now.
We need one. I want to thank you.
You're
and
welcome, Chris.
We'll send you a copy of this DVD.
I'd appreciate
And
that.
we'll put a copy in the Cheshire Historical Society so our students here can listen and watch you
You
again.
invite me back again, you can fly me back anytime, and I'll be happy to speak with the Historical Society and the kids up there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the Staff Sergeant Casaro's presentation. I would have liked to talk to Staff Sergeant Casaro heck of a lot longer and in detail, but the question and answer period went longer. He's just a great guy, an energetic guy. He's always on the move, and you can understand why he enjoys life. Like he said in the the presentation, when you have it almost taken away from you, and you get it back, you don't want to give up. You don't want to lose any opportunity. You don't want to live a life of regret. And this man, he's not giving up any opportunity. He feels he's faced the devil, he's looked the devil in the eye, punched it in the eye, and came back. So he plans on going all the way to the end. They're going to have to drag him from this earth, nail and tooth. He's not going very quickly. So what we're going to do now is I've got a few clips. One is a clip of some actual combat footage that a B-17 pilot had to go through. They had to go through 25 of these to be able to come back home.
Check in your station. Now, because you know that enemy fighters will appear any minute, they know exactly where you are. They've been watching the stratosphere condense off your wingtips, giving you away in long trails of magnificent treachery. Guard the rear. Top turrets hunt the sky above in all directions. There's some more out there. Keep your eyes peeled. Now at every point on the dial.
Smoking on number 4. He's going out and down. Check the chute, you guys. One chute out of the tail. 2 out of the waist. Another 2 boys out of the nose. There's 2 more. Pilot the tail. Pilot the tail. Let me know how they're doing back there. Roger. Fighter, 6 o'clock. Coming through. 11 o'clock. Low. Yep, no chance there. Two 190s, high. Somebody got one of them on the button. That jury pilot bailout, he's not walking away from it.
Guts this enemy. 4 o'clock level, out of the sun and up from the ground. Group picks out his MPI in the dock area. Let's go with the heavy stuff and the big incendiaries. The high group heads for the industrial section and hands out the same medicine.
Yeah, our fighter cover's got here. Ah, poor spit. Gee! I feel it, Jerry. It's over today, pal. Look at that spit right up down. Oh, you sweetheart. Good night, sweetheart. Till we meet tomorrow.
As a Marine, I used to go and say, wait a minute, 25 missions and you can go home? What? These are the Army Air Corps? Why? But when you see some of the combat footage and then you see some of the statistics, 12,000 B-17s, over 4,000 of them were destroyed by enemy contact. 1/3 of them never made it back. Almost 50,000 Army Air Corps members were either killed or were wounded as a result of these B-17 missions. 25 was a lifetime. There was a few individuals who went 35. We have an individual in Keene who flew 25 missions. So again, you never know who the heroes are around you. They're here. I've talked to the individual. And again, nicest guy you can think of, a humble guy, a grateful guy, a positive guy. So again, I want to thank Staff Sergeant Casaros for the opportunity, and I want to thank all the veterans, the ones we talked to for the Veterans Day show. Thank you for the opportunity, and any other veterans in World War II who wants to continue on with this legacy, lives in the Keene area, American Legion, VFW, men, women, doesn't matter what religion, what color, you all had a part in the story. And if you want to, contact me and we'll get it going and we'll have another episode. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you again on that long road.